The urban working classes and young people in general were enthusiastic at the beginning of the plans. They were carried forward by the spirit of cultural revolution and wanted to move forward to a better society. Thousands of young people who volunteered to go and work on distant projects, often laboring in the most primitive of conditions. They were prepared to make sacrifices to build a new world. Workers who stayed in their jobs and observed labor discipline could do well in the 1930s. Those who exceeded their targets were rewarded with higher pay, better working conditions, and, with luck, better housing. They were celebrated in newspapers and on notice boards, where they worked. One of the most important sources of new labor was women. Some 10 million women entered the workforce. The less well-educated, especially tough ex-peasant women, became laborers or factory workers. Generally, women were paid less and found it more difficult to gain advancement than men. At Magnitogorsk, almost half of the workers in January 1932 were under 24, and typically ex-peasant, male, unskilled, and illiterate. In 1933, about one-fifth of the population were exiled peasants. In the coal industry in 1930, the average worker moved jobs 3 times a year. Many were resentful about being forced into industrial work. This led to a high rate of absenteeism. The skills shortage was one of the biggest problems the planners faced. In 1931, it was estimated that less than 7% of the workforce were skilled. Untrained, clumsy workers were doing an astonishing amount of damage to expensive imported machinery and were turning out poor quality goods. Tough measures. A series of measures were brought in between 1930 and 1933 to deal with absentees. Causing damage or leaving a job without permission could lead to a prison sentence. The degree of control increased during the second and third 5-year plans. In 1938, labor books were issued along with eternal passports. The labor book gave details of a worker's labor history, qualifications, and any misdemeanors. It was very difficult to survive without one of these. In 1940, absenteeism became a crime, with 2 offenses bringing a prison sentence. Forced labor. Some labor shortages were solved by using forced labor. Lumber camps were set up in the forests of the frozen north, and the timber produced was exported to help earn money for industrial investment. The number of forced laborers increased when the Great Purges got into full swing in the mid-1930s. Throughout the 1930s, the central planning system never managed to improve the standard of living. During the first 5-year plan, in particular, the workers suffered very badly. There was a profound lack of consumer goods and food was rationed. It is estimated that cities and towns were growing at a rate of 200,000 every month. Workers lived in barracks in appalling conditions. Overcrowding was intense. In 1935, Stalin announced that life has become better, comrades. Life has become more joyous.